morning to you this morning. This is Carnival Radio Breakfast Show newspaper review segment, and I am Elizabeth Tessie Okemukoko. So this morning we bring you newspaper headlines from the Punch newspaper, the Daily Post newspaper, the Vanguard, the Nation newspaper, as usual, just to keep you informed and updated. So this morning we have headlines such as tax reform to create opportunity, promote fairness. Federal government threatens closure of Almajiri centers, violating standard. That is from the Punch newspaper. And from the Nation newspaper, we have that ex-Oyo deputy governor resigns from federal job for governorship bid. And also from the Vanguard newspaper, on petrol, we have that marketers keep prices high as crude drops. And also we have from the Daily Post newspaper, Obi Kwankwaso talks rekindle fresh plot to unseat Tinubu. We go on to the news stories in details. The federal government has maintained that Nigerian tax reforms will ultimately be judged not by how much revenue it generates, but how fairly it distributes opportunity across society. The Minister of State for Finance and Chairman for the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee, Taiwo Oyedele, said this at the unveiling of a book on policy guide aimed at advancing gender equity and social inclusion in Abuja recently. The presentation, organized by the Policy Innovation Center, brought together by policymakers, development partners, private sector leaders, and civil society representatives. Attendees engaged in high-level discussion on the 2026 tax reforms, addressing how ongoing tax reform can expand economic opportunities for women, youth, and people with disabilities. This news was sourced from the Punch newspaper. Tax reforms to create opportunity, promote fairness, according to Minister. Also, another one here, the federal government has threatened to enforce measures in Almajiri learning centers nationwide, warning that non-compliance with newly established operational standards will attract sanctions, including closure. Details of the measures are contained in the national policy of the enhancement of Almajiri education in Nigeria, released by the Federal Ministry of Education and obtained by newsmen on Tuesday. The policy covers operation and management of all Almajiri learning centers, males and females across the country. At the center of the policy is a set of mandatory standards that all learning centers must meet or risk suspension after a probation period of 3 to 6 months. The framework of the policy is set of mandatory standards for all learning centers. The framework, to be implemented by the National Commission for Almajiri and Out-of-School Children Education, introduces stricter regulations of the system, long criticized for neglect and abuse. Under the new rules, all Almajiri centers are required to register with relevant state or local authorities and maintain comprehensive records of learners, including biometric data, to enhance monitoring and accountability. This news was sourced from the Punch newspaper. Federal government threatens closure of Almajiri centers violating standards. Now moving on to political stories. Ex-Oyo Deputy Governor resigns from federal job for governorship bid. In line with the directive of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for appointees with political ambition in 2027, elections to quit by March 31st, a former Oyo State Deputy Governor, Rauf Olani, has thrown in the towel. Chairman Governing Council of Federal College of Education, Oyo, said he left to enable him join the race for the State All Progressive Congress governorship ticket. Olaniyan was Governor Seyi Makinde's first-term deputy, who was impeached by the House of Assembly. He subsequently joined the APC. Olaniyan, in his March 23 letter to the Secretary of the Federal Government, said that he is writing formally to tender his resignation from his appointment as Chairman, Governing Council of Federal College of Education, Oyo, with effect from 23rd March 2026. He also noted that the decision is taken in compliance with the directive requiring political appointees and public office holders with political aspiration ahead of the forthcoming 2027 general elections in Nigeria, particularly in preparation for the participation in the party primaries as stipulated in the 2026 Electoral Act. This news was sourced from the Nation newspaper. Ex-Oyo Deputy Governor resigns from federal job for governorship bid. We move on to another political story from the Daily Post newspaper. Former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, said a Salah visit to the leader of the Kwankwasiya movement, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, in Kano State. According to a post shared on X by Dr. Eunice Tanko, coordinator of the Obedience Movement, following Obi's meeting with Kwankwaso, the engagement focused on strategizing for our collective interest to make Nigerian work again for all of us. The visit has stirred fresh speculations about a possible alliance between two men whose separate ambition in 2023 may have cost them a collective opportunity. Many analysts are in the view that the meeting is a reminder of unfinished business and perhaps a quiet start of conversation that once failed to materialize. However, negotiation between the two camps reportedly broke down over disagreement on power sharing in their previous meeting, which many analysts say that could have been a formidable third force instead of splintered into parallel campaigns. This news was sourced from the Daily Post newspaper. Obi Kwankwaso talks rekindle fresh blood to unseat Tinubu. And lastly, we'll take a news story from the Vanguard newspaper, away from politics and all of its others. In spite of the drop in crude oil prices to $100 per barrel from $130 per barrel, oil marketers have continued to sell premium motor spirits, also known as petrol, at 1,300 naira per litre and above across the country. Crude oil prices began to decline amid expectation that ongoing diplomatic engagement between US and Iran could lead to return of Iranian oil into Asian markets in the coming weeks. However, investigations by newsmen in Lagos and its environs yesterday show that marketers have not adjusted pump prices in line with developments in the global oil market. The checks indicate that several retail outlets, including MRS, sold petrol at 1,333 naira per litre, while depot prices remain slightly lower. Depot operators such as Alcanes, Soroman, and Bova sold the products all at about 1,270 naira per litre, while Dangote Petroleum Refinery priced this product at 1,285 naira per litre. This news was sourced from the Vanguard newspaper. Petrol marketers keep high prices despite the drop in crude oil prices. This is where we wrap up our newspaper review segment on the Carnival Breakfast Show this morning. Thank you very much for listening to us and for staying tuned. Do not forget you can always stay informed by checking out our news on our website at www.carnivalmedia.ng. Once again, I am Elizabeth Tessie Okemukoko. Do have a beautiful day.